one of the things I always loved about yours is that yours is like the production value is so good, and I know you put in a ton of work into it, you know. And I'm like, okay, how can I look more like Dillon, but without like trying to do as little work as possible? Because I am the laziest person on earth, you know.
Dude, well, trust me, that makes 2 of us, and I'm glad that it comes off that way. Because honestly, man, it's
Yeah,
really like again, my at this point, my editing is so minimal. I try to do most of it in recording and, because 'cause I've always wanted to stream, you know, shorten up my process, and I've considered hiring an editor so many times, but
yeah.
I still do everything myself, so that the next step is coming eventually, but I don't know when.
Okay. How long do you usually spend on an edit for a video?
Editing is usually like 45 minutes to an hour, I would
Okay.
say. And that's where like I'm like, all right, I could just start live streaming this, but then you lose a lot of the polish and but then it adds in a different element too. So eventually maybe I'll start live streaming on Fridays, something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just watched your video with David and really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man.
Because dude, I can relate to so many of the things that you talked about with the existential crises and there are so many things that I'm constantly things I want to execute on, wondering like what the next building block is. And every time in my life, because I've done many different things to this point, and something you said about you have that crisis, and then every time it like launches you to the next chapter, dude,
Mm.
so true, so relatable. So I really enjoyed that one.
Dude, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, it's been something I never knew I was gonna be in this content creation space. It was completely by accident, and I'm really grateful that I'm in it because one of the big lessons I've learned, through that process is how to build thick skin, you know? And that's something that
Sure.
I wasn't very, in my past, like, I was okay at, but when you're in front of thousands of people and one day you say something that's gonna hit somebody a certain way and they're like, you piece of shit, blah blah blah, you scumbag, you know, they just hurl everything at you. And then when you go into your notifications, it's just a stream of hate. You're like, okay, why am I doing this, right? It like forces you to ask yourself that question: who what the hell am I doing this for? And
Sure.
that's been a really good learning lesson for me, is that if I'm so grateful to be in a space where I can create for me. And if it doesn't vibe with people, then I've learned to say, okay, I just can't please everybody. And they're not doesn't make them any
Never.
worse or better. It's just that day they hate me. Cool.
Mhm.
All right. I'll go to bed and I'll wake up the next day. So I don't know if you fought with that or if you battle that, because that's been something I've learned, and it's completely unexpected, but I'm glad that I went through it.
Of course, yeah. I actually now I do really enjoy the pushback because it keeps me on my toes. You know,
Mm.
anytime I get something wrong, I'll get called out on it immediately. And I've definitely made some mistakes over the years. And so, I mean, I think that's good and healthy. And again, it makes me want to do better and be accurate and all of those things. But yeah, I mean, you always have to differentiate between just people that are out being negative and people that have negative feedback, but you can turn it into that something that's useful. But it's always been funny for me because my wife is real fiery and she'll read my comments and she gets way more fired up about negative comments than me. So I have to like calm her down and I'm like, look, because she might start doing stuff and over the years she's tried different things. But yeah, it's part of being a creator and in the public eyes, you do have to deal with that negativity. And yeah, I just try to channel it to for good. But you nailed it, man. You can never please everybody. And again, on X now, it's almost like the more controversial you are, the more engagement you drive. And
Yeah, right.
at the end of the day, as long as we can have that conversation, and I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. And but yeah, thick skin is key for sure.
How did you get into the YouTube game in the first place? Like, how did you end up with it?
Yeah, so it's actually a long story. I guess I'll give you the cliff notes. But so I was working at a gym in my area. I was in the fitness world for a few years. I was waiting to go into business with a friend of mine. We were going to open up like a supplement shop essentially in our hometown next to one of the gyms. And he had some stuff come up, and I was literally just waiting for him. But I've been a huge Tesla fan since like 2012, and I've always wanted to do my own thing. I'm super entrepreneurial and don't like having a boss, can't do the 9 to 5. I like operating in chaos. So started the channel and just did some like deep dive videos as I was waiting, kind of as something to do. And then within the first 2 months, it got monetized, and I was like, hey, maybe this will work. And then yeah, it didn't work out with my buddy, and here I am 3 years later. So again, it was kind of
Dude.
accidental. I knew I was on the entrepreneurial path, but didn't know it would look like this for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like when I talk to some creators, I feel like that accidental like stumbled into it is like almost like I started it for fun and then it turned into like a bigger thing. All the
Hmm.
successful people that I've talked to is like they're not starting it to be successful. They're starting it because they enjoy it or because it's something that at that time in their life jive with them. And then they just kept
Hmm.
going with it. And then before they knew it, they have like you, a trillion subscribers or whatever you got going on right now.
Just slow
And they're
down.
super
Yeah, not.
successful.
Yeah, and I wanted to say to you, speaking of that, man, congrats on like your growth on X and YouTube too. It's been
Thank you,
awesome
man.
to watch. And I'll be honest, I remember you watching one of your or uploading one of your first YouTube videos talking about, I think it was maybe talking about Tesla stock and another one about your time at Tesla. Watching that video, I said, man, I really love this dude. Like we would get along so well. And then since that time, I've just been enjoying watching you grow and been looking forward to being able to talk because, yeah, I like what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you. And like I said, I really respect the work you've been doing. I've just been dying to talk to you. It's just our schedules haven't lined up until now. And now we're both wearing Penn State jerseys. And we've started the podcast, I guess, 8 minutes ago. So as long as you're okay with
Nice.
that stuff being in there, let's keep going.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Whatever you
Mine
want to
as
talk
well.
about, I'm happy to talk about anything and everything.
Dude, that's awesome. Let me pick your brain on a little bit more of the content creation stuff because that's been just the fun of mine, and then we'll spend so much time on Tesla and stuff. Well, let me ask you this: how much time do you have? Let me make sure I'm respectful of your time.
As long as you want to go, really.
Okay, awesome. Usually an
Up
hour and
to
a
you.
half ish, plus or minus 15, 30 minutes. But I'm guessing we'll probably be closer to an hour 30 to 2 hours if I were to guess, just in our
Sure.
discussion.
Sounds good
You're
to
okay
me.
with that? Okay. Um,
Definitely.
So, how are you viewing your sort of content now with X in play? Because one of the things, one of the tweets I saw, one of the posts, excuse me, one of the posts I saw from you
How dare you?
is that you're looking to be a little bit more active on X because of all the stuff that's been happening. So, kind of walk me through what you're thinking there a little bit.
Yeah, geez, how much time do you have? So definitely been thinking about it a lot over the past few weeks and just how to integrate it. I mean, we've had so much stuff going on from a personal standpoint, just house stuff, projects, and things we've been doing that I haven't really had as much time to dedicate to the platform as I'd like to. But I'll just say it right now, point blank, I honestly could see X becoming the platform over the next decade. And it would kind of surprise me if it didn't. Having watched Elon operate and execute over the past decade plus, I just have such a trust in what he's going to be able to do. And of course, I think the free speech thing is so important right now. And, I see a lot of people demonizing YouTube, and I understand it. The censorship thing is not cool. But at the same time, it's literally changed my life and my wife's life for the better. And, without it, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So, I try to keep that in mind because all platforms have pros and cons. But when it comes to content creation, my biggest thing is always trying to be valuable. And so, again, like I wonder how my frequency of posting on X, like how, because I'm always thinking about posts more like Sahil Bloom, right? Like writing threads and making it more
Mhm.
valuable each post. But I think a lot of people relate to just the quick thoughts type of thing. And so it's always just going to be balancing that. But I definitely like the interaction over there. I love the real time news. I think it's awesome for that type of thing. I'm very curious to see how they handle video going forward. If people start getting comfortable on that platform watching longer form video, that's obviously going to change some things for sure. So yeah, I really love the platform. But for me, again, like I spend a lot of time working on my YouTube videos and my other projects, and there's so many other things that I'm into that sometimes I just need to step away from social media and just kind of like take a breath and obviously spend time with my wife and just focus on other real world things. But I guess to kind of tie a bow on this one, I'm absolutely excited about the platform. I do really want to start using it more, and I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to get into. But I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be me being me and everything that I'm into. And I saw you talk today about it allows you stepping outside your niche. That is a very astute assessment. And because on YouTube in the past over the years, I've tried different videos. Even now, like if I tried to make a video about Ford or Lucid or just Rivian, I would have maybe 10% of the views.
Yeah.
I'm really in that Tesla niche, and I'm not complaining at all because that's what I'm interested in. And that's how I ended up here. But I do like that about X, and I plan to take advantage of that because, again, there's just so much that I'm into, and it's just choosing what to execute on and, what to spend time researching and posting about and figuring out what people like and they don't, and just like you said, just ever evolving and going from there. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've already talked to your channel about it, but I'm curious about your Farzad Productions too, like what
Yeah.
you have planned for that. I'm pretty pumped to watch it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so that is like a experimental thing that I'm trying to work through. So the reason why I did Farza Productions on X is it's the verified badge is something that I was very interested in on X. So the verified, it's that gold check mark that helps you be affiliated to an organization, and then it will help you get more engagement and seen on the platform. And the way I viewed that was like, okay, so typically with Elon Musk, not typically, like almost always, if you invest in his ventures, they are rewarding. So like that's the way I
No
view
doubt.
it. It's like, okay, Tesla stock worked out. Don't have any SpaceX stock, but if I had some, would have worked out. And you see, kind of go back, PayPal worked out, which was the original X.com, and then all the other ventures that he's had, right? So a very successful businessman that, once there's opportunity for somebody to invest in a venture, they have very good success rates. So I'm viewing it from that lens. And then I said, okay, if within the context of what I'm trying to do from a content perspective, I'm really enjoying, like, I just love this. I love the having full control of what I do. It seems to be resonating with people. It's growing. It's generating a great income that I just did not expect that would be there, but it's enabling us to do things that we didn't think we could do, but now we can. So from
Mhm.
that perspective, I'm like, okay, if I really want to take this to the maximum of where it should be, because I don't think it stops here. I think there's so much more than I can do. Then it makes sense to start making some moves. Like we got to start investing in areas, and it seems like where X is right now, it's really in its infancy. I mean, it was Twitter like what 2 weeks ago, and or whatever long
Mhm.
it's been. Now it's X, and so doing anything I can from that perspective to invest very early on into the growth of that platform and everything that comes along with it seems like a very wise move. It's a first mover advantage. And
Mhm.
from that perspective too, I'm thinking about the cool thing about having that verified org on X is that you can give the badges to people. So you can give it.
Yep.
So I gave one to my wife because she's my producer wife and she's part of the channel. So congratulations, you're officially hired, wife. And then my editor, my media guy, David, he got a badge. I also gave a badge to Danny. So Danny does all my content and then he turns it into ASL for like the hearing and other, like they have impairments, and so he does all
Mhm.
the sign
Cool.
language and everything, and is doing it on his own dime and time. And he's like, I just want to do it because I love it. And I'm like, this is crazy, great, go for it. Here's a badge,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So
Yep.
it creates this sort of like almost like a digital uh, place where you can create an organization and each person benefits from being associated to that organization. And so I thought that was
Mhm.
very, very interesting to play with. And then on videos where, or pieces of content where, say, the entire team has a significant percentage of work that goes into it, then those will go on Farzi or Farza Productions, and that would be the
Mhm.
the sort of account that drives that. And it could be the beautiful thing you just kind of talked about on X is like there is ability to diversify. There's ability to not just do a niche because YouTube will kick your ass. Like you said, it will kick your ass if you say one word that the algorithm thinks you shouldn't say because it'll just like, oh, your viewers don't want that. Don't say that. Here's some, whatever. It goes into obscurity.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
X allows you to diversify a lot more. So that's like kind of the initial plans, but that's how I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts from that perspective? Like, have you been playing with the idea?
Yeah, so not much, just really the last few days after watching you do it and Alexandra, and I love it. Like I love what she's doing, even having them other creators reimburse her for a badge. So very curious to see kind of how that plays out. I am very closely watching, and it's just we have to wait and see as Twitter generates more revenue and becomes more in the green, how they're going to handle their payout rates. Because I think for at least for somebody like me, who is super analytical and always looking at the numbers and ROI and how I spend my time. Not that it's all about money, of course, because it's not. I really do try to focus on value
Of course.
and all of that. But at the end of the day,
It's your time.
we're all lying. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all thinking about it to some degree. So, um, yeah, just how Twitter will or not Twitter, how
How dare you?
X will handle that, and what what kind of data we're going to have into um, how we can optimize, I guess, our content, because that's one good thing I'll say about YouTube is they're obviously a lot more established, and I'm not trying to make a comparison because it's not fair, but it's just a benefit that YouTube has now. Like I know exactly what I'm making, when I'm making, why I'm making it. I can see the breakdown, and honestly the rates are great. Like I'm very happy with what I'm being paid. And I've had a lot of people ask me to post my videos on X, and I mean, I would, but like right now I'm not monetized yet, and that's on me. I just haven't been using the platform as much, but that's obviously going to take views away from where I'm getting paid to have views. And so again, I want to be like listening to my audience. But what I think I might do is I'm going to turn on subscriptions eventually. But again, I didn't want to do that until I can add some value for these folks. I know some people will want to support me just because, and that's awesome. But I always want to be valuable. So maybe I'll put my YouTube videos on behind subscriptions for a bit, a little bit early or something like that, and
Mhm.
just go from there. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of testing. I'm sure it'll change season to season because, again, I go in phases with so many different things. I'll go in phases where I'm all the way in the weeds with Tesla and nerding out like as far as we can go. But then I have other seasons where I feel so solid and content with Tesla and the investment that I'm into fitness and wellness stuff, or I'm into, a different topic. So, it's just, yeah, ever evolving, but I'll be on there more going forward for sure.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about X that I discovered, I think that as I've been, because I upload all my videos on X and on YouTube. Because the one thing I wanted to test was what's the overlap of audience between X and YouTube? And what I've
Hmm.
noticed is that it has zero impact on my YouTube performance because people are not watching long form content on X. And
Hmm.
so like literally I think I'm uploading videos even where Elon replies or likes or retweets something if it's a video, it will get seen the first 5 seconds and then people will be like, "Eh." And then move on to the next
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Like literally I look at my
Yeah.
retention graph, the first 30 seconds is 99%, and then the next 30 seconds is like 1%. And I'm not even joking.
Really?
It's like
Okay. Wow.
nothing. So
Yeah.
what I think I'm gonna do moving forward is I'm still gonna continue uploading videos on X because I think what's gonna happen is once they do turn on, say the discoverability for video, that's more like YouTube, that it has more of that sort of easy to find video. People will actually have a player that works correctly and is reliable and it's conducive for
Hmm.
viewing video. Um, I'm building up a catalog of content that once that algorithm takes on, theoretically, again, I should have a first mover advantage. As a percentage of the total content that's out there, my content on X should be significantly higher than the content on YouTube. So, and again, that's investing. It's investing into the platform. I'm investing my time uploading a video and throwing it on there with the risk of potentially losing out on views on YouTube, with the thought that, hey, long term, once they turn on discoverability, all that content is just going to sorry everybody, is going to flood everybody, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
from a business standpoint that makes sense. So I don't know if that helps you in any way to sort of think about yours, but I found that it doesn't impact YouTube at all yet anyway.
Yeah, no, that does definitely help. And again, I think a lot of my stuff is just totally overthinking it. Like at the end of the day, a lot of social media is just doing. That's why I love
Mhm.
Gary Vee. He's all about just try stuff and see what works and what happens. And um, so I do. I think again, it's just going to be a matter of experimenting. And I'm also very curious to see how X handles search. Like obviously YouTube has an awesome search feature. You can find content easily, and their ranking is great in terms of because they just have so much data. So searching in my experience on X, even trying to find like people or creators hasn't always been the best experience. But again, I'm giving them a lot of grace here, and they need time. They need to figure out how to stay alive financially. It sounds like they're doing that well and progressing. So, yeah, there's just so much and so many different things we could dive into on X. But yeah, I don't know if you want to keep going on X or
No, we can
switch to
switch
them.
gears. I just think it's such an interesting topic to sort of start with because it's ties. I feel like as creators, we have like we're thinking about it constantly, so it's like very easy to like this could turn into a 5-hour podcast about where is X gonna go. So let me go ahead
Before
and yeah, go ahead.
before we switch gears though, I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
want to ask you.
of course.
So, do you have like time barriers that you put on your time? Because I look at people like you and Sawyer, and I always think to myself, like, how often are you guys online? Like, do you have times when you unplug? Or I'm just thinking, like, how do you think through that? How do you handle that type of thing?
That's a beautiful question because this is the war that I'm that I fight with myself 24/7, and the war that my wife is constantly like, when are you going to unplug, you freaking idiot? It's like, what, you're just
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
burn yourself to the ground 24/7, So that's my big challenge. I have have a very obsessive personality. So it's, if
Mhm.
I enjoy something, I'm passionate about something, even if I'm not actively doing that thing, my mind is just constantly thinking about it, or how to
Same.
execute on it, or do whatever. So I want to tell you that yes, I've set up barriers mentally, physically, that will remove me from quote unquote the work. But in reality, is this thing keeps going until I go to bed. And so that's one thing I'm starting to really figure out how to implement. So the thing I'm doing in the morning, which I fall off the wagon, but I'd have picked it back up, is that the first, say, hour and a half of my morning, no devices whatsoever. You wake up, you lay in bed until like you kind of realize where you are. You get up, you don't look at your phone, you do your business, you make some coffee, you go outside, get some sunlight in your eyes because Andrew Huberman told you to, right? So,
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
yeah. So you do all that stuff, and then you talk to your wife for half an hour, 45 minutes. You kind of get caught up on what's going on, and then after an hour and a half, you're like, okay, I got to go get my day started, and then, but then the challenge there is where I really struggle is that, okay, so when is the end time? The end time is a huge struggle for me. So sometimes, if I'm having a great day and I feel like I've achieved a lot and I'm really just happy with the performance of my content and I'm proud of the work that I've done, then I'm like, okay, it's much easier for me to disconnect. I'll go downstairs and maybe I'll throw up something, like I'll start playing chess on chess.com or something, or play some video
Nice.
games, or go on Discord and talk to my friends. Or if and I think the challenge for me comes from the fact that maybe I don't feel proud every day that, okay, I've done everything I absolutely can to achieve a certain goal. And
Mhm.
so then I'm like stuck at the computer for like until 8 p.m. And I'm like, shit, it's 8 p.m. I haven't eaten yet. And then it's like, my wife's like, where are you? So that's my
Yeah.
challenge. What I would love to hear your side of it, because I'm wondering where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar. So I think we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. And part of being a creator is almost everything I think about, I'm looking through the lens of how can I create content around this, or how can I be
Yeah.
valuable with what I'm learning in my personal life? Because I look around the world and I see so many people that really are struggling, whether it's wellness, fitness, spiritually, emotionally. They're trapped in jobs that they don't like and they have no sense of purpose. And there's just so many like areas that I would like to try to speak into and be valuable in. But then for me in that mindset, like there's so many things that I'm interested in learning about and knowing that can easily pull me away from time with my wife and just time being, in nature or relaxing or being with people, like building relationships in my life, which are the most important thing. And I saw Sahil Bloom, he posted about that. It was an analogy. There's like a jar, and then there's like rocks, pebbles, and sand. And rocks are like your core relationships. And it's all about like when the rocks are in there and how the order that you put them in. I won't dive into it, but it's on his X recently. But that really resonated too. Just making sure every day, like you have your main things, and each person is different. You have to set your hierarchy and what's important. Um, so once you have that, then you can kind of analyze like, all right, the time I spent today, did it align with what my hierarchy is? And I think that can change season to season. Like for me personally, my ultimate one will be faith, and my Christianity number one, that doesn't change, but like things under that may fluctuate. Um, so I don't need to like go further down that rabbit hole, but I don't have any like hard limits. Again, I really love being an entrepreneur, we'll call it that, content creator, because I like having the freedom to be in deep work when I'm in the mood to be in deep work. And when I'm
Mm,
not, I'm not. Like no one's telling me I have to do something. So I kind of just lean into that and try to have Ashley as my accountability. Like if she sees me spending too much time or getting burnt out or treating her differently or whatever, she knows me better than anybody. So she can call me when I'm getting off kilter,
yeah.
because I'm human, like I'm most 99 out of 100 days. I'm super grateful. Like I love life. It's awesome what I'm doing. Like I genuinely enjoy this. Um, but again, I'm always trying to balance how hard do I work? How much do we strive? How big of an empire do we try to build?
Yeah.
Versus do we just shut it down and enjoy each other and travel and go do things? Like that's a really hard balance for us. And I think again, it'll change season to season. But for me, it's always just praying on it and making sure Ashley and I are communicating through it. And that's kind of the best you can do, one day at a time type of thing.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, I'm really thankful that you've shared that and been sort of open about it. I think from my standpoint is my biggest challenge, and this is where I try to do a lot of introspection. So I spend a lot of time, as of late, I've tried to spend a lot of time thinking very deeply about why I do what I do, right? And like I'll be open from my perspective. I don't really have a faith that I sort of try to use as a guiding light or something that would sort of set a foundation for me. And I love that you do and others do. But for me, it's like I I'm for myself, I'm trying to figure out why I'm here. Like what's the point of Farzad in this place right now? And
Yeah.
that takes so much time mentally and physically for me that it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult for me to re repoint that energy to say, oh, I should be, I don't know, maybe I should be cleaning the kitchen right now instead of thinking about creating content. Or maybe I should be going for a walk, or I should be watering the freaking garden that's dying because it's 107 degrees outside, you know? But it's like,
Mhm.
it's all, and I wonder if it's like ADHD or ADD or something. But that's my biggest struggle. And I think part of that too is maybe I'm not grateful or thankful enough about my situation right now to allow myself to step outside of this sort of thing
Mhm.
that I've created for myself and be like, wow, okay, so this is literally where a lot of people would love to be. And you should just be very thankful of that and just set it aside. Be like, yes,
Mhm.
I have what I wanted forever. I have incredible freedom. I'm so happy. Just put it to the side. Just like, put it right there, let it hang out, and then go do something else for a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
my struggle is like if I don't feel like I'm very impatient. So if I feel like I haven't reached a certain level of something, I freak.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Yeah.
freak. Yeah.
I am ultra impatient. So again, I think we relate there very much so. I lost my train of thought.
It's all good.
Um,
Well, did
cool.
you want to continue talking about this stuff, or did you want to shift gears? Like, how are you feeling from your end?
Same. I mean, I'm happy to keep talking about it. I do
Okay.
think I just didn't know how much, again, like what you're trying to get to your audience, or
I just want
if
to
you
talk to
have
Dillon,
people.
bro. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, dude, then all right, that's because that's what I've really wanted to do. But at the same time, again, in
Yeah.
my head, I'm always like, all right, I want to obviously get to know you first and foremost, but I
Of
want to try to
course.
be valuable for your audience too. So, however you see that is definitely good with me.
Well, I think, that's part of like what I've been trying to like search through. I do think conversations like these are helpful for people. I really think that I think we're at a point where I don't know, just part of me feels like there is especially after COVID, people are searching for meaning. They're searching for like
Hmm.
something that really resonates with their soul and something that really resonates with what they want to do. And I feel like conversations like these are helpful in that route. It's two Tesla dudes talking about it right now, but at least we're talking
Hmm.
about it. At least we're
Yeah.
talking about it. So I'm not super concerned about conversations like these actually like say not being valuable. Yeah, it might perform poorly on the algorithm for whatever, but I don't care. It's like I really have to move. And that's the thing that I'm really trying to shift my mindset on is the YouTube algorithm is so captive. It can just completely destroy your mindset on any given day. Because if you pour your heart and soul into something, I would love to hear if because you've kind of touched on this a little bit briefly before, you can pour your heart and soul into something, and then you put it out there. You know it's good. And you can see the comments. People are like, yes, this is freaking amazing. But like you said, it's
Hmm.
10%. YouTube's like, not that good. Don't worry about it. Don't do that again. Otherwise, we're gonna, slap you on the wrist again, and then we won't push any of your videos. And then you're like,
Hmm.
damn it. So do I have to start a different channel to talk about this? And then you got to think, okay, I got to build that from scratch. And what if it doesn't resonate? What if I'm actually full of myself and it's not as good as that? So that's the battle. That's my battle right now that I'm trying to like
Hmm.
strategize on. And so it's almost like it's almost like I've made a decision that says, okay, so if YouTube wants to treat me like a business, fine, we'll be a business. I'll treat you like a business back, and I'm going to get to 1 million, 10 million subscribers. You asked for it, so let's go for it. So that's the kind of almost mentality that I'm trying to have now with YouTube, which I
Mhm.
think I almost feel like it's maybe it's a little arrogant, and maybe it could potentially be sort of distasteful to the audience. But from my standpoint is I'm going to do that by creating the best possible content in what you want me to create. And then while I do that, I'm going to grow my X. And then once X has reached that point that you and I talked about, where where it's going to blow people out of the water and it's going to become a huge player in the media market, and that becomes say 10x of my engagement and income, then okay, sorry
Mhm.
YouTube, you put me in this corner and I served your corner, but guess what? The other stuff is way more rewarding. So I don't know.
Mhm.
Goodbye, right? So that's where I see this playing out over time. I think. I don't know if you agree with that, but
Yeah, no, I do, and I actually have a lot of thoughts on that, but I wanna go see what's going on in my
oh, of
house real quick,
course,
and then
please.
I'll be right
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
alright?
yeah. Who are these people?
Alright,
Yeah,
sorry about
yeah.
that, bro, we're
It's
good.
all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
we're getting a new tabletop and had to
Oh,
make
sick.
sure they're paid and stuff, so yeah, we're good.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So you had some thoughts you wanted to share.
Yeah, so I think so much of the conversation has to do with the framework people are operating in. So like for all creators, it's different, you know, whether it's they have to do it financially to live their life, or some people are financially free and they can just create whatever they want without being so concerned about the CPM rates or the monetization. And I think again that there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, you know, it just depends on what that person is optimizing for. So I think it's going to be totally different maybe for somebody who's financially free and they just want to make content to put out in the world, and or but then somebody else maybe they have to focus more on where the engagement's better, where the CPM rates are better, where they're getting paid more. So I think that's like an important distinction to make. But yeah, I mean, again, like there's so much potential on X, and I think from my time standpoint, I want to learn how to use the platform and see how they handle things going forward, and all the things you mentioned, the first mover advantage. But for me on YouTube, like I just stopped trying other content. Part of it is because I've fallen into a niche that I really enjoy, that is kind of optimized for the algorithm. Like people that find my channel, I pretty much only do one thing. It's daily Tesla news, Monday through Friday. Every now and then I'll do an interview and branch out a little bit. But again, like I am probably going to start a new YouTube channel talking about other topics. But
Nice.
yeah, like I just don't have that optionality. Like people have asked if once I got to a certain threshold, would I start doing, I will say this. I have considered doing some Matt Farrell undecided type content, like maybe just doing more research videos, kind of how the channel started, and it all be under
Mm,
the, you know, new tech, sustainable energy, that move, kind of like he does, because I really enjoy those videos. They're really helpful, and maybe I could do, you know, 2 of those a month or something on Sunday. But um, yeah, again, it's just so many ideas, not sure what to execute on. Like we're loving our life right now, we're enjoying the season and trying to just be, like you said, the attitude of gratitude. It's so cliche, but I think it would serve so many people so well. And in our social media culture, it's so easy to be like, I'll be honest, man. I have days when I look at you on X and I'm like, man, you give me FOMO, because I'm like, this dude's crushing it. You know, he's just, I love how you handle it and how you build
yes.
a community. And I'm like, I am missing out. Like, you know, so like, but it's great because, you know, I'm built that way. But again, I just think for most people, they would love to be in your or my shoes and being able to work from home and wear jerseys and talk to cool people
Oh, yeah.
and follow cool companies and get paid to do it and have an audience. Like it's just such a gift, you know, and it definitely has its ups and downs, but I think the ability to enjoy a good thing is actually biblical, and not everybody has that ability. Like how many people do we know with huge followings, with a ton of money, with freedom, that are miserable and stressed and anxious? Like,
So
so I
true.
think, yeah, step one is just being grateful wherever you're at, and then kind of building up from there. But that gratitude has to be like a core thing, because you should be able to find something that you're grateful for.
I love that, dude. I love what you just said. I couldn't agree more. it's so easy for humans to just take, the when something awesome happens in your life, I feel like, think back to when an awesome thing happened for the first time. So like what are the huge things that happened in my life if I think back to it? So when I got my citizenship in the States, that was freaking awesome. But like, holy crap, I can vote now. This is great, right? But then like now I'm like, freaking politics, everything's broken, everything sucks, blah blah blah. But then back then I'm like, I'm so proud to be an American. This is freaking great, right? Achieving that point where I'm like financially stable and independent. Oh my God, it's great. I can do whatever I want now. And I'm like, oh my God, why am I mismanaging my time? This is so stupid. I shouldn't be doing this. So you just beat yourself over the head constantly. And we're so quick to adapt to the now, to what
Mhm.
has occurred. And I feel like that's the strength and weakness that we have as a species, because that impatience and that sort of like, I need to do better for whatever reason. I need to get
Mhm.
here for whatever reason is what advances our society and civilization forward. But I think, like you said, like for a lot of us, it's we don't have, like me especially. I'm exhibit A here, where I don't take enough time to smell the roses every day and be like, wow, I'm so grateful and thankful to be here. And I get
Mhm.
lost in the weeds so much. So I really appreciate you being another sort of positive force and reframing this, because it's I mean, me talking to you, I mean, I'm telling you right now, this is incredibly helpful for me, dude. It's like, this is super super helpful, and I really appreciate you sort of making the time and talking to me, because this is part of my journey, and that's why I brought you
Mhm.
on, because this guy's cool as hell. Like, he's got something figured out, and he went to Penn State. That's really number one. But
That helps. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
but there's just I just got the sense from you that you had some wisdom that I think I would benefit from. And I mean, we already proved it 40 minutes in. It's like, I'm already getting so much value from talking to you, dude. Seriously.
Well, very glad to hear that, and I would always just say, yeah, praise God for anything that good that comes out of my mouth. But yeah, again, just for me experientially, it's helped my life. Like just simple things, morning habits, just sitting down for even 3 minutes and just literally thinking about what I have in my life that I'm grateful for. And like any day that I wake up and my parents are alive, Ashley as well, like it's a great day, and it's just such a simple practice. But again, I think it's become trite or cliche. But again, executing on it is never like it always gets me framed in the right mindset. And again, I'm human, and there's always stuff that we have a way of finding things to make negative or to distract us or to be anxious about. But I see everything as spiritual warfare. And that's why I've always found the Bible to be so interesting. And again, even if you take the God thing out of it, which, that's a whole nother conversation, but just taking the Bible for what it is, it's the best document that I've ever read that explains our existence. Like beyond just the science and the data, which I love and I'm a big fan of, it talks about like love and emotions and why we are the way we are. And I've never seen any other document do that so accurately. And so,
Mhm.
again, I think there's a lot of wisdom in there. And just there's a verse that I've always gone back to in Ecclesiastes that basically says like the best thing that a man can do is just enjoy his toil and basically like eat good food and drink and like enjoy the lot that you have. And
Yeah.
no matter where you're at, we do have that ability. And if you take the comparison and the FOMO out and you just focus on your little circle, again, and if you have that like hope of a better future that the Bible promises, it can really change things. And then it just becomes a matter of whatever the results may be, it's out of my hands. So the only thing I'm focused on is planting good seeds every day. The Lord will water them to whatever they may or may not be. And that's part of why I think more people would benefit from just looking into that faith mindset. Is because it just takes so much off of me. It's not about
Mm.
me. This
Mm.
this like my channel is not even about me. And it's just I have certain gifts and a calling, and in different seasons I felt it more than others. But at the end of the day, each day, all I can focus on is again planting good seeds, trying to be a servant of others, like putting the needs of others above myself, whether it's knowledge or care or a friend, like whatever that role might look like. And as long as I am doing what I feel is serving others, I can be good with it. And
That's
that doesn't mean
awesome.
I don't struggle when videos do poorly or when my engagement's down. Like I still, it'll get rattled for a little bit, but it's just a lot easier to process it and contextualize it when you see the bigger picture and know that at this point, as long as I'm doing the right work, then just let things be as they're meant to be. And it just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's given me a lot of peace and contentment over the years for sure.
That's what it sounded like to me. Like you have a mechanism that allows you to find peace in sort of the struggles that you encounter, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
exactly.
I'm so
For
happy for
sure.
you. I'm jealous.
Yeah, hey, yeah.
That's great,
I would
dude.
just say, man, it's available for everybody,
That's
but
cool,
yeah,
man.
we don't have to get super spiritual on this one, but
Of course.
yeah, it's definitely available.
Awesome, man. So now I think this is like a perfect segue because it's you're sort of talking about you have this gift. You have this gift and you have a natural interest in this sort of this crazy story that is Tesla. And like you are bringing so much value to say the people that are interested in the story, the investing base, whoever it is, but clearly you're doing a phenomenal job. And now,
Thank you.
we both have followed the story for a long time. Most of our audience come to us to understand the story a little bit better. So what is the thing that's captivating you right now in that story? Like what's the thing that you're like, this is like number one? Like what's the thing?
Yeah, what a good question. There are definitely many, but I think, it's kind of a basic answer, but it would have to be autonomy just because it's going to change so much. But I think personally for me, it's the Cybertruck just because. So we don't have a Tesla yet. And again, I can like, people always ask, what are you doing? Hey, this guy's a fraud talking about Tesla, doesn't own a Tesla. I get it. It's fair. The criticism is fair.
Well, it
To
allows you to
defend
be
myself.
less biased, I feel like, in a way, because you can look at it a little bit more holistically without a
Well, that's
Tesla.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. But I would just say, like for us, again, we drive like 6 miles a week. I work from home. My wife doesn't work. Our cars are paid off, and Teslas are still not cheap vehicles. And now interest rates are high, so like I have the option to funnel money into Tesla stock and be more financially comfortable and set, or I could go drop 60K on a vehicle that I want. Don't get me wrong, but it just hasn't made sense for us yet. And I think part of that now is, again, what I was going to say for my answer is I really want to see what the Cybertruck is about, because hopefully next year is the year we decide to pull the trigger on a Cybertruck or a Model Y.
Ooh.
So I'm very interested in that vehicle. I'm just like everybody else, dying to know the specs and what type of technology they have in there. I want to drive it. I want to see what it's like. Just so many questions in that realm. So I think personally, I would say the Cybertruck because I'm interested in potentially owning one. But from a company standpoint, it has to be autonomy just because that's the next huge wave up. I think a lot of your audience has seen the Dave Lee waves, and I think the autonomy one is going to be next on the list. The bot for me is obviously exciting, but it feels like a bit further into the future. So yeah, I guess that would be my short two answers.
Okay.
What about
Where
you?
so
Do you have one?
for me it's I mean definitely autonomy. I did a video on this. I did it yesterday. So yesterday was hell for me from a content creation perspective. I'll tell you what I ran into. So I did an update on OBS. They had an update that they did, and then I had a 40-minute record. Like I was stumbling over my words so much. It took me 40 minutes to record a 15-minute video, and
Mhm.
essentially, and
Been there many
OBS.
times.
Huh?
Been there many times.
Yeah, dude, it's just brutal. And
Yeah.
and then I saved the file, and then I went to put in Premiere Pro. Freaking OBS defaulted to the file format being MKV, and Premiere Pro didn't support MKV. So then I had to go find a
No.
freaking converter that wasn't going to hack my computer, and then I had to convert it to MP4, which took like another 45 minutes. So it's like what usually would have been like say uh and okay, and then I did that, and then I export the file that I used was a brand new file format that I had to experiment with to make sure that it fit correctly. And I was trying to figure out how to get Premiere Pro to play nice with the way it was outlined. And I had to reset it a few times, and then I had to make a ton of cuts because it was a 40 freaking minute video for a 50-minute video. So what should have taken maybe say an hour and a half end to end ended up being like 5 hours. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
And like saying it out loud is like 5 hours, big deal. But when you're in it, you're like punching yourself in the head constantly because I need to get
Yes.
this out now. And so what I did
Yeah.
is I had a launch this morning instead and actually performed really well regardless. So that was a learning lesson.
Good.
Just get it done. Who cares? Just get it done, upload it, people will watch it. Um,
Yeah.
but on that video, I covered autonomy because I really think the Cybertruck is going to be incredible to create this halo effect around the brand. That's I don't know why people are discounting that so much. It's like so
Hmm.
obvious what it's going to do. It's going to be in every rap video known to man. The second it's out there and these folks can get their hands on it, every rap video is
Hmm.
going to have the Cybertruck in it. And but autonomy, especially if you put it within the context of the price decrease announcement from China that came out a couple of days ago and how the stock reacted based on that news, it's obvious that autonomy is not priced in. It like finally clicked for me. Why would a 5% decrease on a Model Y impact the stock price when autonomy over a 10-year period on a car that can drive itself, that 5% price drop becomes absolutely negligible because the car's going to generate 100,000 plus of profit instead of $8,000. And then
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, duh. It's because it's not priced in. It's because Wall
Yeah.
Street's like, it's not going to happen. Or
Yeah.
what they're saying is, we don't see it happening yet, so we're not going to price it in. And from my
Yeah.
perspective, it's like, okay, there's your gap. There's the perception versus what's likely to be reality. Again, for the third time, we're in a
Hmm.
situation where Wall Street is not pricing in what's likely going to happen. So if we go back to 2012, 2013, it was EV can't be profitable. Boom, profitable. Market cap went from what was it like 10 billion to 50 billion. Then in 2019, 2020, you can't reach mass scale profitably. Boom, went from 50 billion to a trillion. Now it's like you
Hmm.
can't reach autonomy. Okay, great. And that's where we are. That's what it feels like
Yeah.
anyway. What are your thoughts?
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's where the alpha lies. That's the next biggest alpha, and it is because Wall Street just doesn't buy it. And I think I don't really know. I guess what the problem is. I mean, I know I listen to Gary Black a lot, and I really respect his work. And I know you
Yeah.
guys are friends, and but yeah, I just still think his take on autonomy is a poor one, and just that everybody's just going to have autonomy when Tesla has it. I just don't think that will be the case, and I'm definitely not an expert in machine learning. I can tell you that, but I mean, I can track the prices of LiDAR and I can watch what these other companies are doing and I can read articles about the scalability challenges of HD mapping and just logically thinking through how hard it is to scale that type of model. And I think a lot of the comparisons of Tesla's autonomy to Waymo and Cruise, it's like apples and pears or apples and basketballs. Like it's just different, and there are some, I guess, crossovers that we can talk about and draw value from, but they're really pursuing almost different models to a certain degree. So yeah, I just think again, and I think Elon has lost a lot of credibility for predicting it every year. I really do wish he would just keep that internal with the team, maybe keep that pressure on. And I know why he does it. And we wouldn't have most of these nice things we have if Elon wasn't built that way. So I'm happy to give him grace. And no one is perfect, obviously, but again, at this point, it's just Wall Street hangs on that, and Gary does, and he's predicted it how many year after year, and so I understand why they're not attributing more value to it. And it's just such a tough conversation to actually know what is attributed to the stock price, because I've read some books about dark pools and all of the derivatives involved in the stock market and how these big money institutions are moving and manipulating the market. The simple takeaway in the short term, there's so much more going on with the stock price on a daily basis that when people say, like, okay, Tesla stock was down because of this today, it's really such a fool's errand, because that could, sure, it could be a portion. And sometimes, like, there are reasons that move the stock. But when
Yeah.
you understand what's going on in the derivatives market and how that's impacting short term price moves, it really just puts me in a place where I literally could not care less. Like, I'm a long-term guy. I don't do trading anymore. I actually almost opened a hedge fund doing day trading. So I've been down the rabbit hole, and it was actually going to be with a subscriber of mine, which is
Oh
kind of a cool
snap.
story. But yeah. It was, he's still a super close friend of mine. But the point is, like, again, I think most people are long-term investors, and I just see too many people getting sucked into these short-term narratives that aren't benefiting anybody. And I think it's stressing more people out. Like, again, and I struggle with this because I don't want to feed into that, getting people in a mindset of that they need to keep up with the daily news, because the truth is you really don't have to. Most of these news items mean nothing for the long
Everybody
term.
unsubscribe right now. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to find my next move a lot sooner than I was anticipating. You hiring for Farzad Productions yet,
Sure.
or what?
I have a badge.
Appreciate that. Um,
Sorry.
so yeah, I just think no, you're good. And I think, yeah, timing, I don't know, but I think I wish also that Elon and they would give us a little bit more about what their plans are for how they're going to roll it out when they solve it.
Mm,
Like, we have no idea.
yeah.
No inkling, and maybe they don't even know. And I understand obviously why they wouldn't forecast to the competition how they're going to do it. Um, but yeah, even some breadcrumbs just to give us, like, are they going to do a regional thing? Are they going to do an in-house fleet? Will they have an option for people that own cars to, like, put it on their network for a bit, but then they bring it back into their personal ownership? Like, I don't know. They're all fun conversations to have. But again, I tend to focus more on the data that we know rather than just like speculating. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I think these are all phenomenal points. What's interesting about the Tesla story right now is that we're very much in this period. It reminds me a lot of it's like a shortened, who knows, hopefully it's shortened, maybe it's not. Sort of this like 2015 to 2019 timeframe where the company was just working on building out the next generation of what it was going to be. So it transitioned from this sort of niche luxury automaker to a mass market automaker, and it takes time. It takes time to build out the factories. They had to build out the entire supply chain. They had to build out where I was at the service network. Right, these are things that take years to get there, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like we're in that same time period where we don't have that sort of momentous occasion where flip or switch is flipped, and then all of a sudden the masses realize what just happened. For those that were following the Tesla story very closely from 12, 13 to 19, 20, we saw what was happening. We saw what was happening. It was just the masses weren't there. And once that profitability quarter came through in 19, and people saw, okay, Model Y and Model 3, they're selling like crazy and they're generating a ton of profit. And then we go into the crazy loose money environment that was 2020 and 2021, 2022 part of it, where people can just throw money anywhere, then the stock obviously benefited tremendously from that. But it was because they reached a new
Mm-hmm.
threshold. And so this time period feels very much like that. And so what I found from just sort of thinking back to those time periods is when we're in those time periods, the short term news items always have such outsized impact in how we think about the story, because we all know why we're in it. I think at least long-term investors in retail, we all kind of understand why we're in it long term. But when that thing hasn't happened yet, and it still feels like it's a little bit of ways out, and we're kind of waiting for it to come, then a price decrease in China, the world is collapsing. Oh, Elon and Zuck are trying to drum up engagement in their platforms by talking about a fight, and anybody who's not super close to MMA and boxing, they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Elon's doing this." And I'm like, "This is the same guy that tweeted that he had funding secured. This is the same guy that called somebody a pedophile on Twitter. This is the same guy that smoked weed on Joe Rogan, and you're mad about this?"
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
really?
Yeah.
So like
So true.
you make
So
such a
true.
great point. It's like it's the amplification of the short term is
Mm-hmm.
so loud when a company like Tesla that has these long time horizons, when they're in that build phase, the short term dominates. But I mean, but I think that's why channels like yours are so helpful, because it at least provides the context in a in a accurate, tied to reality way, versus if say mainstream media had any say in this, the guys that are incentivized to not publish anything negative about uh, Ford or GM or anybody else because they'll pull their ad dollars. I don't think we can trust those guys to tell what's going on up through that point. And that's why
Mhm.
people like you and your Daves and your Robs and your Stevens and everybody, I mean, the entire incredible community of retail investors that Tesla has, then those are the people that become the trusted sources to understand the short term while all
Mhm.
this stuff is happening. So, and it's given birth
Yeah.
to this incredible thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I just think what I always say too is part of why I personally still do the daily news. There's a lot of reasons, but one of which is over time, you get to see these drum beats and you get to realize if a story matters or not. Like NHTSA, special investigations. Like if you come in not knowing anything, you might think, oh boy, this sounds bad. But if you know that they do hundreds of those a year, and if you know they've already done like 40 of them for Tesla, then you realize, okay, this is like business as usual, and you can kind of explain why they're doing it. So yeah, again, it's just being able to contextualize what's going on. And I just genuinely love keeping up with the company. Like I think it's
Yeah.
such an awesome, interesting company. And I always look at my friends and family that have no interest in Tesla, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, if you have kids and family, obviously that's great. But yeah, it's just, I guess not everybody is into Tesla, and that's fine. But again, the impact that it's going to have and has already had on the world is so huge. And people
Yeah.
really don't know, like, if we're going to a fully sustainable energy future, Tesla is the reason, full stop.
Yeah.
And all of these problems that we may now be avoiding to some level, whether what you say what you will about climate change, and that's a whole thing. But um, at the end of the day, having a fleet of vehicles that don't cause health harm, like that's a big deal, and I think people don't even think about these things. The air they're breathing is causing people all kinds of complications, but just because you can't see it in the air doesn't mean it's not there. Like these particles and emissions, they're killing people,
Yeah.
and so again, I'm like, shouldn't you be a little more interested in this company that's literally out to change the world for the better in on so many different levels? So that has always been interesting for me. And again, part of why I started what I was doing is to try to provide some context to see these drum beats over time and see how we can contextualize it all. And just, yeah, I just enjoy it, watching what they're up to and how they're navigating things.
The one thing that's still super underrated as you're talking about this is one of the things, if you think about, let's view it from like a lens of America. We're both live in America, so it's like cool. So Tesla is one of the very few large scale manufacturing companies that has been making really incredible things here. How come
Right?
nobody's talking
Yes.
about that? Like it's
Yeah.
crazy to me. It's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
nuts that we finally have a a a true manufacturing giant that is growing like crazy and is reinvesting a ton of its earnings into growth in this country. And it's making American cars with American labor and American materials. It's localizing everything it can as fast as it can. And
Mm-hmm.
somehow that's not recognized, or even worse, demonized by the
Yeah.
same groups that are championing this, like, oh, America first or whatever. Or yeah, we want Americans to get paid more. We want Americans to have jobs. Bro, like literally, I don't know of a better example. And then you have bills like the IRA that, again, this is going completely under the radar. I feel like is that this thing, one of the things that I think this, let's not even talk about politics, but I think it's a great thing that the administration has done to pass this bill, which is to incentivize the manufacturing of the next generation energy systems in the U.S. And who's the primary beneficiary of that? Tesla. And that's just not. I don't understand why 60 Minutes or CNN or somebody hasn't done like a 20, 30-minute piece on this. And then in my head,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, maybe I will. Maybe this is
Yeah.
this, or
Yeah.
maybe you will, or maybe the Tesla community will. These are the kind of things that are so like wide, like they have such a broad impact into how this country will evolve in the next 10, 20 years. And it's because it takes so much effort, and because it takes so much investment, and because you've had to spend the last decade investing your time and energy into technologies and building out the systems for this to happen. It's like now you're at the position that you can actually take this to the next level. and it's missed. It's completely missed. And I feel like it's not going to get
Mhm.
its due until there is 20 million per year, from Tesla, and everybody's in a self-driving car. And then folks are gonna be like, "Oh, I can't believe it's happened. This is crazy. I didn't see this coming." I'm like, "Bro, come on."
Yeah. No,
You
so that's
know?
a great point on the American thread. That is a big one as well. And we actually we left out one of the biggest ones that can actually tangibly change many people's lives is the financial aspect. Because I remember in
Yeah.
2012, I was that dude making custom Tesla apparel, going to poker games, telling my friends about Tesla and their EVs, and they would all make fun of them, their golf carts, blah blah blah, that whole thing. And at the time I was like, say what you will, but I'm telling you, if you have 5 grand available, it needs to be in Tesla stock. And this is not financial advice, but it was financial advice to my friends and family, just point blank it was. And it still is, to be frank. Like,
Sure.
if you have a long-term perspective, when we're talking about a risk adjusted return, I have yet to find something that I like better. Um, but yeah, just the ability to change one's life. And I have some really smart, super successful friends that don't own any Tesla. They do the index funds, but I'm like, 0% is not the right exposure.
I
The
agree.
way I see it for most people. Um, Especially people that are in the building wealth phase. And so again, I don't know why they don't, or what the problem is, if it's the mainstream media narratives that are clouding people's judgment. But that's part of why I started doing what I was doing, was because more people need to know the truth about this company and what it can mean for your life and our lives and our kids' lives. Like, this is such a cool story all the way around. It doesn't get
Yeah.
any better. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there's also a level of and this is sort of like what I've experienced from time to time when I talk to, say, people like friends and family, and maybe like just random people when this topic comes up, which is rarely, but whenever it comes up, when they bring it up, I'm like, "Oh yeah, let's go. Let's talk about this." I never bring it up myself because it would be a
Yeah.
disaster. Um, the um, so that there's been a time period where the stock went up to $1 trillion market cap, right? And then it's come down and it's gone back up. And the what I hear is, well, it's already gone up a lot. Like that's sort of the mentality. Well, it's already gone up a lot. And that sort of talks about and again, not financial advice. It talks about I think there is a lack of understanding into what a market cap actually is from when it comes to a company. Uh, and I learned this. So when I was at Tesla, we had I hosted these little seminars because Tesla was really good at giving you access to buy the stock through the employee stock purchase program. And
Mhm.
and people that were there would love the company so much, they're like, "Oh my god, how can I get more Tesla stock?" But what I found is like 95% of people that own the stock, they look at the stock price and they compare the stock price to, say, Apple, and they're like, "Oh, it's so expensive compared to Apple." I'm like, well, let's sit down and let's talk about what a stock price is and what a market cap is, right? And
Yeah.
so that process was so eye-opening for me because it really highlighted how and this is not saying that people are stupid or smart or whatever. It's just there's
Mhm.
a gap in education.
Right.
Most of the public, like a giant majority of the public, doesn't understand the difference between a stock price and a market cap
Mhm.
valuation. And once I started walking through that process with the folks at Tesla, the ones that were interested in it, it's like, oh, their eyes lit up. They're like, oh wow, so I shouldn't be looking at the stock price. I should be looking at the market cap. It's like, yeah. So if and this was the time where Apple was at, I think, like $1.5 trillion market cap. And I'm like, let's just walk through some scenarios. If this were to happen, then this is what the stock price would be. Not financial advice, but just kind of giving examples on how market cap works. And then they were like, yeah, but Apple is like $1.5 trillion. That's such a huge number. It's not going to go above that, right? And then it hits with like that 3 trillion now or something, like 3 years later or whatever it is that now. So I think that
Mhm.
experience really opened up a lot of eyes. And but for me, it was just like, okay, so there's still a huge gap in the retail community of like just individuals out there that are looking to get into the stock market, that they don't fundamentally understand what it means to create value for a company and what the ceiling could look like. And in the case of Tesla specifically, because it's in so many different industries, it's it's like I don't even know how to quantify the market cap because it's in so many different ones. Because once you go 10, 20
Yeah.
years out, it becomes crazy. How often do you think about that? Like going 10, 20 years out and thinking about what the valuation could be. Like, is that a struggle for you as much as it is for me?
So I wouldn't say a struggle as much as something that makes me like excited that I
Okay.
hope I'm around to like watch unfold, to be honest, because um, I talked a little bit about this on when I chatted with Herbert. It really doesn't make any sense how big Tesla could be. And it does get into the realm of like protectionism and monopolies and government intervention for how big it could be. If you just walk out all the different streams they have, and autonomy, Optimus, the fleet, AI, Tesla Energy, all the things most of us all know about, because they're the leaders in most of those categories. And maybe you could argue they're not for Optimus, but you could also argue eventually they will be, especially when it comes to production and selling and all of that. So yeah, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because again, like it's not really going to change too much. I've already done my due diligence. I have the utmost conviction in the company. I know where we're headed. I know what the risks are, and so I kind of just will adjust my allocation, just honestly as a fun way in the short term. When like I have a set amount every month that I'm investing and adding to my position, and I'll try to do it wisely throughout that time based on moving averages and getting back into my financial advisor days. And it's totally unnecessary for most people. um, so yeah, I definitely have thought about it many times into the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And yeah, it just really doesn't make sense. Is this
Yeah.
the simplest thing I could say for how big they can be.
It's
um,
so
and there are
weird.
definitely some limiting factors and some phases. And this is part of what I just wish more people could grasp, is that that's all true. Everything I just said is true. But on the way there, there's going to be ups and downs. Like there's going to be demand pockets. There's going to be things that go wrong. Like maybe these new two models don't sell well and they take them off, or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, just a hypothetical. But the ability to have those demand pockets, have lower prices, have lower margins. Like, yes, Wall Street's going to overreact and the stock price is going to move. But I think more people would be better served to be able to let go of all of that. If you really are a long term investor, that stuff should mean next to nothing to you. And I just think it gets blown so far out of proportion and amplified. And not that it's bad to pay attention if you want to. Again, it's good to learn and understand what's going on. But for most people, it's really just noise.
Yeah. How do you view uh well, I have two separate questions. Okay, I'll ask this one. How do you view legacy auto in this entire equation? Like, what's like? Do you think competition, not competition? There's like all these theories about which I'm part of. Like, majority of legacy automakers are probably going to go bankrupt by the end of the decade, kind of maybe early next decade, but it's going to be difficult for them to survive because of just the disruption of it. How do you think about the EV landscape in that world?
Yeah, no. So I would say this. I'm actually rooting for most of them. They definitely have their warts, and there's things they've said about Tesla that I don't like, and things they've done that I don't like or agree with. But my reason for rooting for them is I want more EVs available to people. Like I want a street full of EVs that aren't spewing nonsense into the air. Um, and again, I just think I would say they're better vehicles, but Legacy has a lot to prove that they can sell these vehicles. And one thing, again, I think people need to be aware of is that they have all these promises and predictions of what they're going to build, but there is a world that exists where these vehicles don't catch on, and I don't know how far Legacy will push it. And I think part of the EV goals, if there's going to be a challenge that the EV movement has, it will be these legacy auto companies not being able to have a product that hits and sells in volume. I mean, no one has cracked 10,000 a month yet. And that's kind of a basic barrier that needs to be crossed. So, GM can talk a lot about Ultium, and they have the factories in motion and they're building the cells. And I've said for a long time, this is a huge year for them. But if these cars like the Blazer and the Equinox and the Silverado aren't priced well and people aren't buying them because they're cross shopping with the Model Y, that's a big problem, like a huge problem. And so I guess I would summarize it as saying I'm rooting for them. I want them to succeed because there's a huge the market is so big. There's room for multiple players. Tesla can't sell all the EVs themselves. They need some help. And let's not forget Tesla's mission, right? I think a lot of people get so sucked into Tesla stock side, they forget about the reason Tesla even exists, and it's to transition the world to sustainable energy. And again, they cannot do it alone. So I'm rooting for them, some more than others. Like, I'm definitely more of a Rivian fan than I am a GM fan. But at the end of the day, like, I would love to have options for people that not everybody wants a Tesla. And part of it, like, when there is millions on the road and they're selling, whatever, 5, 10, 20 million, it's like,
Yeah.
it's just going to be so ubiquitous that it's less desirable for certain people. Growing up, I always wanted a car that wasn't seen locally. Like, that's still a desire that I have. It wouldn't draw me away from Tesla, obviously, because I'm such a fan and supporting their mission, but that's a real thing, and yeah, I like options for the market. It's good for the consumer because it'll push Tesla to drive prices down and keep innovating and not stagnate. So I just think it's all good things for the consumer in the world to have Legacy figure it out. Like, I don't want to bail them out. I don't want my tax dollars going to more bailouts. And I feel like that's might be where we're headed. So I'm rooting for
Yeah.
them not to struggle too much.
I agree 100% with that. I think the very frustrating part of it is when I look at the chart that I saw over the weekend. So January through June, over 60% of the market share in the US for EVs is still Tesla. And the next bigger player is what was it, Ford or GM at 6%. I think it was GM at 6% because they have the Bolt, which is going to be discontinued. And then or not discontinued, like rebadged,
Just
or
change. Yeah.
who knows. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
next one's Ford at 5%. So, and then we're 11, 12, 13 years into this whole thing if you go from the original Roadster, and there's still this giant gap. And then when I look at the pricing for the Blazer and I put it side by side to the Model Y, you get less range for $10,000 more. What the hell is that? Like, I don't understand
Right.
that at all.
Yeah.
The Silverado EV, they're only going to go with the work truck. They discontinue the cheap model. Then you got the Lightning, which is it went from being sold out to oh, we're going to drop the price and open reservations for everybody. Like, okay, what's going on there? Then you got the Mach-E sitting on dealer lots for 100 plus days of
Hmm.
inventory in hand after they shut down their freaking factory for 2 months to retool for more Mach-E's that I guess nobody's buying. So it's like that's
Hmm.
so I look at that and I'm like, and I'm just like you. I'm like, I want these. I'm rooting for them. I want all of them to survive. I think Jim Farley, out of all the legacy CEOs, he's doing by far the best job of actually
Hmm.
setting a culture to move them forward. But when it comes to execution and actually getting a product out there that people will want, there's obviously a gap. Because if there wasn't a gap, we wouldn't have 100 days on hand supply of Mach-E's, and GM would be selling way more Celestiques or whatever the hell other thing, the Lyric and whatever else they're building, and they wouldn't be talking about discontinuing the Bolt. And then it's like, oh no, wait, we're probably not going to hit our number, so let's not discontinue it. Let's keep it there so we can hit the numbers, but don't worry about it. It's not profitable, but it's okay. We'll keep selling it. So it's
Hmm.
very frustrating. And I think, and I almost feel like, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I almost feel like in this world, especially in the States, it might be global. I think if you're a legacy automaker building an EV, you are dead. I think there is a brand stain when you're buying an EV from, say, like a legacy. I think people are looking for new brands because it's maybe it's like psychological, or maybe the wise EV buyer might be watching you. It might be watching Rob. They might be watching me. They might be watching Dave, or
Hmm.
whatever other networks that are out there that are maybe helping them understand this landscape a little bit better, and they're bypassing the legacy automaker that's clearly inferior in so many different metrics, and they're going to buy from the new player that actually knows how to make an EV. What do you
Hmm.
think about that?
Yeah, I do think about that a lot, actually, and I do think there's some truth there for sure. But I think you could also push back on that in saying, for example, like, people might be hesitant to buy a Rivian or a Lucid because they might not be around in 3 years. There's no guarantees
Mm.
that they make it. And again, I'm not predicting they won't. I think Rivian will, and Lucid's TBD in my book. But I think that would cause me some skepticism. Like, how well will they be able to service? What will the used market be like? What there's not enough data. So I think certain consumers that may push them away from that. But I absolutely agree that I think the informed consumer will understand maybe the difference that building an EV is, but I still think most people don't have any idea. Like if I were to walk at the mall or on the beach and ask 100 people, like, what they think about ICE vehicles versus EVs and how easy it is for Legacy to make it an EV, I don't think their takes would be very informed. So I
Right.
think they might think it's just, oh yeah, you just slap a battery on it and everything else is the same type of deal. When you kind of have to be in the weeds to know that that's not necessarily the case. So I just think we're at that point now. I do think we're past the early adopters. I do feel like we're in that chasm before the early majority, and it's going to be could be a tough year given where interest rates are at, given that there's not that many options available, given the dealers aren't really on board selling EVs, given the manufacturers are not really knowing what the demand's going to look like, given all of those factors. So I do want to see 6 months into the future what the inventory numbers look like at legacy auto dealers, because I think it's a little too early to draw too many conclusions. Because again, some of those dealer inventory numbers include vehicles in transit. So that could be a portion of Ford F-150 Lightnings that they just built now because production's up and running that aren't even to the dealers yet. But again, if we're still going to have dealer markups and the dealers aren't incentivized to sell them because they're dragging their feet or they're discontent with how Ford's been treating them, like there's just so many factors at play. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Have you been tracking this UAW thing with the big three?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your gut
Yeah.
telling you there? Because my gut's telling me strike.
Yeah. Man, if I were to bet on it, it feels that way from what we're consuming, what the narrative out there is. And it's such a big one right now. Like this is a monumental season for both parties, given the EV transition. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. But at the same time, given how much that's going to impact Legacy when they're already struggling, like part of me feels like they're going to go down to the wire and do a last minute type of thing, kind of like we saw with the debt ceiling situation. It gets played up in the media and people get clicks and they make it as, sensational as you can, but then the actual negotiations realize they have another month to get closer and figure it out. So it really wouldn't surprise me either way. And again, part of me thinks Legacy Auto just wants to get a deal done. Maybe they'll pay a little bit more, but they know they need to keep these people happy. But if the UAW is really going to stay like super hardline and get crazy, then they could absolutely strike. So yeah, we'll see.
Just the demands from the UAW are so, it's 40% raises and bringing it down to a 32-hour work week. So it's not one or the other, it's
Yeah.
both, right? So they want to work
Yeah.
less and
Yeah.
get paid 40% more. And I'm not anti people getting paid more. Like great. But let's think about what's going on here. Like if that were to happen, you're going to have people at the place less to help you build EVs, and you're going to pay them 40% more to build an EV that you're already way more expensive on than the primary competitor in the United States. And if you don't do that, you don't make cars. Okay. I feel like how do you get yourself out of this situation, right? And that's where I'm like this is the innovator's dilemma. Just such a incredible real world example of what that means is you have
Yeah.
systems in place as a long-standing player that will, it doesn't matter how hard you try, it literally doesn't matter how hard you try, the systems in place will not allow you to succeed, and it requires such unbelievable effort to to break away from those chains that it could kill you. And so in this case, like what if I were Ford, GM, or Stellantis, what would I be working towards? And some people might hate me for saying this. I'd be like, we need to figure out how to de-unionize now. And that's probably
Yeah.
impossible. I don't even know how they do that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not anti-union. I'm just saying if your union wants to get paid 40% more and be there less, and you're in a do or die situation where you got to shift to EVs and you need people there, and you have literally a thing that's not allowing you to do that, okay, so it feels like the writing's on the wall, So
Yeah. I just wonder how much the UAW is willing to come down versus how much of this is a negotiating. Let's start as high as possible, because again,
Mm,
that's a good negotiating tactic. You start as high and crazy as you can, and work back from there and test the waters and see where the concessions are going to be first. So, um, yeah, where they started does seem absurd. It seems like that's not going to work for Legacy Auto, and I just don't understand the 32-hour work week thing. But like Holmars tweeted, how to know these companies are struggling to compete with Tesla now. And if they do get a deal done, it's only going to be harder because they're going to be paying more and potentially working less. So yeah, I do think it strengthens Tesla's competitive edge. But it's like, for the EV transition, we need these people to figure it out. And I don't want people to like lose their jobs. I'd like to transition as many ICE factories and workers over, and
of course.
because these are innocent people that have families and they're just trying to earn an honest living, and they're caught up in this transition. And so yeah, there's just a lot of different storylines in there, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And like
It
if we
is.
play the variable of, okay, so they are sort of, coming in negotiating properly by coming in super high, but then say they say, okay, same work week hours and 10% pay raise instead of 40%. I wonder how demotivated the workforce will be like, oh man, I thought I was going to get this, now I got to come back and do this, and then
Yeah.
the legacy automaker has to still pay more, 10% more on labor, and then your your labor is not going to be as motivated to come to work because they didn't get what they wanted, you know.
It's a good point, man. That is a good point. Discontent all around. Yeah, it's a really tough situation for everybody involved. I mean, being behind the eight ball already, having to retool everything, having to think through all your strategies and keep up with this company that is Tesla, that is so far beyond anything we've ever seen in terms of, especially in the auto industry. They're just the pace of innovation and the talent that they have. Like you can't catch them. I mean, you just can't. No matter what, how the negotiations go, no matter what type of talent Ford or GM gets, they're just so far behind. And so much of the good software talent that is going to drive this future is already at Tesla. So much of the battery talent is already at Tesla, and getting into supply chain things and the relationships they've built over the last decade, the demand they've proven, like you just cannot duplicate that overnight. And this is what most people don't understand about the Tesla story. And I think why there's some uncertainty about, investing in the company, because they don't have that context. They just don't understand the full story. And that's like, man, I wish people did, because again, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it feels like a lose 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 situation for these players.
Yeah, yeah.
It sucks. Let
Hmm.
me ask you. Let me ask you one more thing on the Tesla topic, and then if you have something on your end you want to throw in too, feel free to. But um, or whatever else. The
Yeah.
what do you view as the largest risk to Tesla right now?
Yeah. So, well, obviously the key man risk is always going to be the biggest one for Elon. If something were to happen to him, that would change. And, but I would also say to that point, I would imagine in the culture, and you would know better than I, but there are just the culture is built in, it's ingrained in the company, and he's delegated obviously incredibly well, and Tesla has such a deep bench, so they would continue on. But I think from a problem solving and from a pushing as fast as they've pushed, that would definitely slow down, because he's just one of one. We've never really seen anybody like him, and so that's obviously the one. But just to add another one that is maybe different, I do think the compact car, there's a risk that if Tesla goes to Tesla and removes too much or misses on the design, that will significantly change their volume projections. So to date, they've given us every reason to believe that they hit home runs each time they swing with their vehicle launches. But this one is a little different because it's a mass market vehicle, but they've also talked about this robotaxi platform. So if they start removing too much, I think about stocks or whatever, and they make it so minimalistic that it doesn't appeal to the masses, or the design. Like if they lean toward a cyber design that's a little more controversial than a Model 3, which is maybe more acceptable, that could also change. So to hit the figures that they want to do with this car, it just has to be just right. And they have to, it's just going to be tough to appeal to that wide of an audience doing the things that Tesla is doing, heading toward autonomy. And that transition might Tesla might be so focused on autonomy that they're not thinking about the end consumer as much. And I hesitate to critique Tesla too much because they have the data, and who am I, this little guy on the internet that reads some articles, that is now going to say, well, they should be doing XYZ, they should do this. It's great that we have opinions. I think feedback is important, all of that. However, to assume that I have some perspective or data that Tesla doesn't have is completely absurd. So we do have to just defer to trusting their leadership to make the right calls. And if they think removing stocks is the right call, even though it upsets whatever percent of the audience, that there's a reason they're doing it, and they're thinking about this long-term picture that they see that maybe we don't see.
Yeah.
So yeah, to tie this one up, I would just say the next gen platform, if they do something too Tesla-ish and it doesn't appeal to the masses, that would be a risk that they would have to then adapt from. But outside of that, I would say financially, they're in such a good position. They're generating free cash flow every quarter. That's adding to their 20 billion plus that they have in the bank. And so if they were to take their margins below zero, or start spending more from a capex perspective for a few years, and things really slow down with the economy, they're in such a good position with minimal debt to not have to raise money, to not have to issue debt, to not have to dilute. I don't really see any financial risk for them because they're in such a good spot. So yeah, those would be my two. What about you?
Yeah, key man risk for me for sure is it will always be number one, because regardless of how talented the rest of the team is and how, Tesla will be okay. Elon is very much, without Elon, I don't think the bot comes to fruition, as an example. Without Elon, I don't think that whatever ecosystem exists where Tesla has built out 100 teraflops or whatever that hell that figure was of compute power, with a server farm of the most advanced chips they can make and software that you can use for AGI. AGI and figuring out how to best use that thing doesn't come to the fruition nearly as quick as it will with Elon. Maybe at some point, but maybe 100 years later, right? Or maybe 20 years later. So Elon is that. It's sort of that if he's gone for whatever reason, then the bot valuation, I gotta yank it out, because I don't have confidence, regardless of how brilliant the team is. It's still this confused looking dude back here, right? So he's got the brain for that. So that's for me, that's number 1, 2, and 3, to be honest. I think the geopolitical sort of concerns that some people bring up, I think, are overblown. I think if there's one thing Tesla has done extremely well, and they've been very wise about, is that they've been very quick to localize their manufacturing as quick as they can in all these regions. And by doing that and having a proved out sort of model that's bringing a lot of jobs and income to the region, it's in that region's best interest to ensure they don't break their relationship with that company, because that company is boosting the economy of that region. And that's something that I think Elon was very forward thinking on. And I mean, it benefits the business, obviously, because you're localizing the supply chain. But then in China, and that's why he built in Shanghai, so that you can be friends with China, so that they don't come and freaking destroy you, or try to make it very difficult for you to get in later. Or maybe I don't know, there might be some shenanigans there or whatever else. So that was very smart. So from that perspective, I think those concerns are overblown. If the economy were to tank, to your point, balance sheet is rock solid, basically no long-term debt, free cash flow while they're growing. They could just say, okay, pause all the build outs. Let's just focus on making the cheapest possible cars, $0 spending capex. Just crank them out. We'll go crazy lean, even leaner than we are now, for 2 to 3 years. We'll go to zero margin, and we'll just make sure the cash balance stays exactly the same every quarter. And that's what we do every single quarter, until hopefully the economy doesn't collapse fullest and the only thing that exists are Tesla cars. So hopefully we'll not reach that point. So from that standpoint, the stock price is going to get absolutely destroyed for sure, but it will recover. For every collapse we've had in the economy, we've had a giant boom that follows, and it takes us to the next level. So that's about as reliable as the sun coming up every night. So at some point it will recover and go past it. It just will be painful. The one point you brought up with the compact car, which I found very interesting, and I think I disagree with you a little bit, is that I think the compact car is is not really reliant on what it looks like or what features it has. If you can hit a certain number per month, because most car shoppers and buyers are monthly payment folks. Like in my head, I have it and I've done some math, and I think Tesla can do this, especially in the US, with the IRA being at point of sale starting next year. And the fact that
Mhm.
this thing is going to be extremely cheap to run on a per mile basis from a electricity standpoint, it shouldn't really need any maintenance whatsoever because I have a Model Y. I literally the only thing I deal with is tires, really, with that car. And every other Model S or Tesla I've had two Model S in the past too, but that's besides the point.
Mhm.
And then the insurance on a car that's going to have safety features that will basically prevent it from crashing. You know, you layer all these things on top of each other, and the starting price being hopefully 25 to 30,000 with the IRA tax credit on top of it, you can conceivably get to a point where the total all-in cost of owning a Tesla, with everything, electricity, insurance, maintenance, lease or loan, whatever you want to call it, is less than $500 a month. And to me, that's
Mhm.
like the magic number that the most people look for is like, what's the best car I can buy for X number of dollars? And if Tesla's like, yo, you can buy a car that you can leave at home every single day, leave your house every morning with a full tank. Your insurance is super cheap because we give it to you because we know you're not going to crash. The electricity is going to be super cheap because we're going to put you on a monthly plan with us on our virtual power plant. You're going to be able to pay $30 a month and you can charge as much as you want at night. And by the way, the car is like 250 to $300 a month just for your lease, unlimited miles. I don't see how that doesn't completely destroy the auto market. I just don't see it. And so it could literally look like
Mhm.
dog shit, you know? Excuse my French. It could be just a
Yeah,
pile of
yeah.
poo on wheels, but if it's got a screen inside and it's $500 a month all in, I think that thing takes off like crazy, especially now in an
Yeah.
environment where affordable cars do not exist in the US, especially. That's how I think about the compact
Yeah.
car.
No, I'm glad you said that, and those are really good points. And I'm glad that you made them. So yeah, I think there's nothing there that I would disagree with. I totally agree. And I do, to be clear, I think this compact car is going to blow up the market. It'll be the thing that takes vaults Tesla to the next level in tandem with autonomy. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's just going to break open a whole new market for Tesla. And we know what happens when we get butts and seats. And then, like you said, if the economics make sense, which it sounds like they're going to. Um, and yeah, I wouldn't even argue that even if they designed hypothetically like a Cybertruck like compact that was very divisive and polarizing. It again, if the metrics make sense, how many
Yeah.
people would look past that? That's definitely fair. So
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. I mean, and then you think about the Cybertruck being launched, uh, and then hopefully this quarter, end of this quarter, probably next quarter, realistically. But then you have that momentum into the compact car. It's like
yeah,
it's very exciting to think about.
I would ask you, how do you think they'll handle the pricing of autonomy FSD if and when they start rolling out? Like, because how is that? Okay, let's say they solve autonomy 20 late 2024 25 when they start rolling out this compact vehicle. It's not still
Yeah.
going to be 15K. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would how they would price it.
So in my head, the way I'm thinking about it is Tesla's gonna find a so we have to set it's almost like there's three components to this. So there is I own a Tesla and I want to be able to drive my car, or I want the car to drive me around autonomously, but I have zero intention to put it on a network so other people can ride it. So that's one customer. Then there's another customer that's going to say, I want to be able to add my Tesla to the network and it make me money. So that's another customer. And then the third customer is, I do not want to own a Tesla. I just want to hail a Tesla when I need it. And that's a different customer. So there's like three customers. The first
Mhm.
customer, I could be, dude, I could be the wrongest person alive here. So, but this is how I'm thinking about it. If I were like, for some reason, Elon's like, you're in charge of FSD pricing, because I used to be a pricing strategist before Tesla. At my previous gig, I came up with pricing
Okay.
strategies, but it was pet food. Okay, so like, but it was $1 billion worth of business, so it was it was important enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, so for that first tier customer, that's a monthly plan. So you have a Tesla, and you can, every month, like right now, it's $200 a month. I don't know. We'll find a price. We'll figure out the market dynamics once we have the actual software. We'll test a few things. My head says, I don't know, between 400 and $500 a month you pay, and then the car will just, you have a private chauffeur, and then the chauffeur will drive you around. You 10x safer than a human, probably more. You never have to worry about it. Completely hands off. You could sit in the freaking back seat and do whatever you want, bro. Like, just fulfill your wildest dreams. So people are doing some crazy stuff in San Francisco, right? So you can do whatever you want. So that's customer number one. And then customer number two, which is the fleet guy or gal, what I see happening there is that FSD price that we're paying right now, the 15,000, that goes up to a number where the ROI would make sense for a fleet runner to purchase. And so where I'm thinking about it conceptually is of, okay, if over the span of the lifetime of a vehicle, if you do some math and you say, okay, if I run it for 40,000 miles per year or somewhere around that, which is what your typical Uber driver that actually uses their car to drive is, probably more in a lot of cases, but it's 40,000 per mile per year. And then it's at a dollar per mile that's significantly less than Uber, but it's still quite competitive, which in my head is like $1 per mile, which is where ARC is at. Then you do the
Mhm.
math, the 10-year return on that car for a fleet runner is like $400,000. Just very, like, you have 40,000 miles a year, 10 years, $1 per mile, that's 400,000, right? And so Tesla will take a cut from that, obviously. And so Tesla will have to decide, is it 20%? Is it 30%? Is it 40%? If it's 20%, then Tesla's making $80,000 on that car over the life of the vehicle. And the free runner's taking home 320,000, right? And so they'll price FSD somewhere so that it incentivizes somebody to run a car for 5 years or 10 years. And so maybe
Mhm.
40,000 for the software. And then Tesla
Yeah.
on top of that will take a cut. And then the customer number three, which is, you and me that potentially don't own a car, we're like, I want to take my Tesla, I want to take my wife out to dinner, and we're going to hail the Tesla. We'll hail the Tesla for $1 per mile, and it will be, I don't know, half the price, probably much lower over time than an Uber or a Lyft. And then we never have to worry about a car ownership. We just hail that Tesla and it takes us places, and the fleet runner gets 80% or 70% of the cut, and then Tesla keeps the rest. That's how I'm thinking about
Yep.
it. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, of course. No, it makes a lot of sense because my number has always been around 40 or 50,000 for
Mm,
FSD when autonomy is here. And yeah, I like how you kind of parse that out. And again, it will always boil down to economics. And again, I just wish we had more of a sense of how they're going to handle that, and
yeah.
what it looks like from the consumer side, what type of optionality they have. And so it'll be cool to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating. It's gonna be fascinating to watch for sure.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Do you want to do anything Tesla, or should we end with Penn State? What are you thinking?
Uh, Up to you, man. Honestly,
Okay.
I'm good with whatever.
Okay. We're approaching 2 hours. I want to be respectful of your time. I want to make sure I don't keep you hostage here forever.
No, man. Like I said,
Because I will.
I've been wanting to hang out for a while, and hopefully we can do something like regularly.
I would love to.
Yeah, I definitely love to stay in touch and keep the conversation going. But yeah, whatever you want to do, whenever
Yeah.
you want to wrap, it's
Yeah,
good
let's
with
do
me.
some Penn State, and then yeah, I would love to do this regularly. I mean, well, let's keep in touch. I don't know, once a month, once a
Yeah,
quarter, whatever. I don't really care. You tell me what your schedule looks like, and I'll be more than happy to do this as much as
cool.
you like. Um,
Yeah,
okay, 12-0. What do you think?
yeah. So I'll be honest with you, Farzad.
Tell me.
I big Penn State guy. Obviously,
Yeah,
I try to go back every year, get to a game. I love being there, but when it comes to college football,
yeah.
I've never like got there with Penn State. I root for them, but like growing
Okay.
up, I went to Notre Dame games with my family, and so I rooted for them a little bit.
Oh,
So I like both. And honestly,
how?
like now I've become such a I'm such a fantasy football guy that like
Oh
NFL
snap!
has totally overwhelmed my college fandom.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, a little fun fact: when I freshman year at Penn State, I actually tried to walk on the football team. I had never played a down of football in my
Oh
life, but
snap.
like I was an athlete growing up, and so
What
they didn't
position?
take any walk-ons that year. It would have been like safety.
Okay.
And a local kid actually from here, from where I'm from, ended up playing safety for them while I was there. So that was
Oh
cool.
sick.
Um, but yeah, I got to meet some of the assistant coaches and stuff. And obviously we had, went to all the games and stuff. So yeah, it's great to go back. I'll definitely watch. I root for them, but yeah, I've just become more of an NFL guy. So I'll
Okay.
ask you, like, what do you think the outlook
Well, 12
is
and
like
0,
for
of
them this
course.
year? Yeah.
Yeah, I do think so Clifford went to he's a backup at the Packers. So that's the quarterback so he's moved on. So they have this quarterback now, Drew Aller, who was a 5-star coming out of high school, had the top ranked recruit. And I mean in games he looks pretty damn good. I don't think he threw one pick while he was playing. But of course, it was kind of like cleanup duty kind of thing. But in the spring game, he looked really good, and they have a ton of talent on the defensive end. I mean, they have so much talent coming back, and the lines, the offensive and defensive lines, for the first time since the sanctions happened, they're finally deep. They finally have talent and depth. So I think they're at the
Hmm.
point now where they're going to be able to actually win games they should. Because sometimes what happens is they'll get into a battle with a team that doesn't have the talent, but there's just so like your Iowas and your Nebraskas, sometimes not lately, but your Iowas and that type of team, your Wisconsins, that their lines are just, I don't know, they have these corn-fed giants that are like 360 pounds. They move like lightning. It's like, how the hell do you
Hmm.
guys do this? So, but now they have that kind of talent on the lines, and they have all the talent on the perimeter and at QB. So it just seems like they're finally stacked, like they're finally stacked everywhere, and kind of
Hmm.
going back to the sort of days of Joe Pa where they had kind of talent everywhere, and it was more about execution. Now it's like now they finally have the lines that they need to execute. So I think 12-0 is it's obviously very optimistic, but I think this year they beat Ohio State. They have a new quarterback at Ohio State, and I don't think their coach. I like their coach, but he doesn't have sort of the killer instinct of the previous coaches that they've had, where they like Urban Meyer and the other guys where they were really able to win a lot of championships with them. I think Ryan Day is a great coach, but he doesn't when it gets to those tight games, it's the team kind of collapses in the fourth quarter. I've noticed, except when they play us,
Yeah.
so which
Yeah.
is a bummer. Um, but Michigan looks extremely strong this year. But I don't know. There's just something about I've never liked Michigan. I don't know, and I've never really given
Same.
them their due. So that's
Are
where I'm at.
you so is Penn State a college football playoff team then in your prediction
I
this
think
year?
so because it's expanded
Yeah.
this year. It's going to
Yeah.
the expanded playoff, I believe. Yeah, this is the first year they're doing expanded, so it'll be 12 teams, and they were just ranked the AP the preseason poll. They have them at 7 already, so
All right.
they're starting
Nice.
from a top number. Let me ask you this: on the fantasy football side, would you draft Saquon where he's at right now in his career?
I would. It always depends on the league scoring and settings and how the draft comes to you and what your strategy is. But generally speaking, yeah, he was actually on my team last year, and I'm the commissioner of my season long league. But
Okay,
I've been doing a lot of like underdog best ball stuff, and that's fun because there's less activity during the year. It just keeps me up with like ADPs because they're paid leagues throughout the summer and stuff. So I have a lot of
I
fun
see.
with that. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm not ready to be done with Saquon yet.
Okay,
I'm such a fan of his. Like I watch his interviews and obviously loved him at Penn State and been following his career a little bit. So yeah,
yeah. He seems humble. Like he seems like a humble dude that's like deserves everything that came to him. Like he's worked really
yeah,
hard for it. And he comes from my neck of the woods, and Nazareth. I used to live in Bethlehem. Nazareth wasn't that far away, so it's like it's kind of like a local guy that we like to support. So who's
do
your
you
most?
ever?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you ever get back to Penn State? I know you're kind of far in Austin, but
I want to go back. I don't know if I'll be able to go back this year, but my gut tells me that they'll be in the playoffs, and I want to go wherever they're playing. And I'm
mhm.
hoping they get a game out here in Dallas in Cowboy Stadium, because if that happens,
Oh,
I'm
that'd
gonna
be
lose
awesome.
my freaking mind.
Yeah, that would be sick. If that happens, I
Yeah,
think Ash and I'll have to fly out, and
dude,
yeah,
you have to.
that'd be really cool.
Hell yeah. We'll go get some barbecue while you're down here too. Um,
Yeah, done.
I was thinking about starting up a league this year, but I'm like so behind on a lot of the like what's going on in the NFL because I'm mostly a college guy, but what I'm noticing
Mhm.
now is a lot of the guys that have heard their names in college, I'm starting to see a lot more of them in the NFL. So it's like now I finally like completed my transition of like, oh, I know basically 50% of the guys that are on the field here. I remember them from college, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Who are your like sleeper picks this year? Like who are you looking at that you or you don't want to
Yeah,
divulge that?
so I know yeah, I can't share this top secret info, but behind the paywall only. No, I would say Elijah Moore. I really like him. I think he's low key super talented, and him and Deshaun Watson in Cleveland can do some stuff.
Mm,
I really like George Pickens. I think he's ultra talented, but I don't know how much the Steelers will throw. Um, Man, I mean, from a quarterback standpoint, I always try to get one of the studs. I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan, and
yeah.
I just really like watching the Eagles play. And but sleepers, man, that Devin A. Chain kid from Miami is pretty nice. He's small, and I think people are overlooking him. But Miami's offense might be crazy,
Mm,
and the two running backs ahead of him aren't super durable, and they're a little older. And then one more I would say is Zay Flowers. I think Baltimore's offense could be awesome with the new offensive scheme and Lamar developing hopefully as a passer. I think Zay Flowers is super talented, awesome route runner. They have Odell now to open up the field a bit. So, yeah, those would be the quickest ones that come to mind. And then at tight end, that Chigoziem Okonkwo cat from
oh
Tennessee.
yeah.
I think he's really talented. He's young. He's an ascending player. They have D Hop and Traylon Burks, but I think he might be the feature some games because he's really athletic. So kind of like him at tight end. But yeah, that's my quick and
Okay,
dirty answer.
nice. Would you so if like where would you put Rodgers now in your tier of QBs now that he's with the Jets? Because you would think he's probably going to throw a lot over there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I like the Jets. They have some talent. We'll see if Garrett Wilson can stay healthy. But Rodgers would probably be like a tier three guy. I mean, again, I wouldn't have him in the top tier just because he doesn't have that rushing upside, but he can
Mm,
still play, and I think he can absolutely. One of the best passers in the league. So I think yeah, mid to late round guy is I'd be fine with that. But again, it's so much of it depends on like league scoring, so it's kind of hard
yeah,
to say because all leagues are different, two QB, whatever. So it
yeah.
depends, but
But it
he
sounds
can
like
still play.
Hurts
So
is Hurts your top guy when you're thinking about QBs. Like you think that that guy can give you the most points?
yeah, for me, I would go Hurts, Mahomes, and Josh Allen would probably be
Mm,
my top three. I just think Hurts his weapons and that offense and that offensive
it's
line, and they have
nuts.
awesome running backs, awesome wide receivers. Like it's crazy, and he's such a hard worker, and I think he's still ascending. Mahomes is obviously people call him the GOAT, but he just doesn't have as many weapons right now. But he'll still produce, of course. And yeah, I'm a big Josh Allen, Steph Diggs guy. They carried
Mm,
me in my league last year, so I like them too. But
nice.
yeah, I'm ready for the season to start for sure.
Me too. I was surprised. I thought the Super Bowl was a great game, but I thought the Eagles had it, man. I thought the Eagles had it, and I was
Me
shocked when
too.
they lost that thing. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, I was rooting for him, but the best stories are the comeback stories, and hopefully Jalen's all motivated. And yeah, I'm a big fan of his. He's a talk about cool, humble, hardworking dudes. Like he's one of them for sure. So I like
yeah.
rooting for him.
Okay. Well, I just got some intelligence, so I can actually start a league this year.
Yeah, man.
I
Like I
got
said, hit me
yeah,
up anytime because I could talk about fantasy football all the time. My friends are super into it, and we've been running the league for a while, and it's just yeah, it's fun to do.
yeah. That's awesome. Any parting words for the crowd before we end the recording on this side?
Parting words, yeah, it's almost tough to think because like I don't know what type of value I added, if any of it.
You've added a ton
But
of value. What are you talking about?
yeah, no, I would just say, yeah, always zoom out, see the bigger picture, try to contextualize what you're doing from a life perspective. Again, I think more people should ask themselves why they're doing what they're doing. If they're kind of discontent, just get back to that first principles, like Elon, what you learned from Elon, and think about your life and what is important to you, and how do you want to be remembered, and what do you want to be about? And then kind of from there, just start building. And just if anybody feels stuck, I need them to know that they're not. Because with the internet and the ability to network and to be seen and to build a life that you want, like it is absolutely within your reach. And I look at a lot of my friends that have, kids in minimal time, but they don't like their jobs. And I tell them, I'm like, man, if you can just carve out even like 2 hours a week, 2 different days where you can start building or posting or doing something and building traction around something that you enjoy, like you can absolutely start to make some money and build some relationships and hopefully get that joy and spark back in your life. But yeah, you kind of have to figure out what your North Star is, right? What is important to you? What do you want your life to be about? And then, yeah, gratitude, man. Attitude of gratitude each morning, 2 minutes, focus on it, meditate on it, and start your day off with that. And then, yeah, from a Tesla standpoint, it's just staying the course and keeping up with what's going on is great. But again, at the end of the day, just, think about the future and, yeah, just don't worry about the short-term news, demand, price cuts, margins. Like there's just so much noise, it's unnecessary to let it impact you and get you stressed out. Cause I have people email me all the time about like, what should I do? This is going on. Should I sell? Like, and I just wish I could talk to each and every person, like as a financial advisor, like I used to, and give them some peace of mind. Cause it's not necessary, the panic and all of that, as long as you can ride it out. So that's my messy combination of final words, I suppose.
I love it, dude. That was amazing. Thank you. That's freaking, you like literally went from like beginning to end and encapsulated the whole conversation.
Yeah, tried to.
And draft jelly hurts.
Yeah, exactly.